The Galactic Survival Committee had one simple job: classify planets by their danger level. It was straightforward work. Most planets fell into categories 1 through 5. Category 1 meant paradise worlds where nothing could hurt you. Category 5 meant you might die if you weren't careful. The committee had been doing this for thousands of years. They had seen every type of dangerous world imaginable. Then they discovered Earth. The committee spent 6 months arguing about what category to assign it. Eventually, they created a new classification. Category 12, Deathworld. A planet so fundamentally hostile to life that the fact anything survived there at all was considered a statistical impossibility. And humans? Humans called it home. This is the story of how the galaxy discovered Earth. How they learned what it meant to evolve on a planet that was actively trying to kill you every single day. How they realized that humans weren't just survivors of a death world. They were products of it, shaped by it, made deadly by it. This is the story of why, after discovering Earth, the Galactic Council added a new rule to their charter. Do not provoke species from Category 12 worlds. They are not like us. They cannot be like us. Their home tried to kill them for millions of years, and they won. We do not want to find out what they learned. The discovery happened by accident. The exploration vessel's swift current was mapping star systems in what they considered the galactic backwater. Boring work, the kind of mission you got assigned as punishment or if you were very junior. Captain Velna of the Kixian species was both. She was young, she had made enemies in the fleet, and she was stuck mapping empty systems that probably contained nothing interesting. She was wrong. Her sensors detected a planet in the habitable zone of a yellow star. Initial scans looked promising. Liquid water, oxygen atmosphere, comfortable temperature range. Maybe finally something interesting, maybe even a new colony site. Then the detailed scans came back. Velna stared at her display screen for a full minute without speaking. Her science officer, an older Kixian named Torval, looked over her shoulder at the data. He made a noise that roughly translated to, "That can't be right." The planet had life, complex life, lots of it, millions of species. But the environmental readings made no sense. Massive storms that could flatten cities, tectonic activity that caused the ground itself to shake and split open, volcanoes that could darken the sky for years, weather patterns that could freeze you or boil you depending on the season, predators that could kill you in seconds, microorganisms that could kill you in days, plants that could kill you if you touched them. The ocean had creatures large enough to swallow their ship whole. This wasn't a habitable planet. This was a nightmare, a planet that seemed specifically designed to murder anything living on it. And yet, the scans clearly showed massive populations of complex organisms. Not just surviving, thriving, cities, agriculture, technology. There was a civilization down there, impossible. Velna ran the scans again, same results. She ran them a third time, still the same. She checked the equipment. Everything was functioning perfectly. The readings were accurate. There was a civilization on the murder planet. She sent a message to Galactic Council headquarters. Subject line, urgent. Priority, maximum, content. We have found something that should not exist. The response team arrived 3 weeks later. They brought geologists, biologists, atmospheric specialists, and the head of the survival committee himself. An ancient Tharn named Keeper Zalmer. He had personally classified over 10,000 worlds. He had seen everything, or so he thought. The team spent 2 weeks in orbit around Earth, as the natives called it, running every scan they could think of. Every specialist came to the same conclusion. This planet was horrifying. The atmospheric specialist reported, the weather systems are chaotic. Massive temperature swings, electrical storms that could fry our equipment, wind speeds that could tear our ships apart, ice storms, dust storms, hurricane-force winds that form over the oceans with no warning. This planet's atmosphere is actively hostile. The geologist reported, the crust is fractured into moving plates. They collide constantly, creating mountain ranges and deep trenches. The collision zones experience frequent quakes, some violent enough to level their cities. Volcanoes emerge at random. The magnetic field fluctuates. This planet is geologically unstable on a scale I've never encountered. The biologist had the longest report. And the most disturbing, I don't know where to begin. The competition for resources is intense. Almost every species is either predator or prey, usually both. The dominant land predators can run at speeds over 100 kilometers per hour. The ocean predators are worse. Some grow to lengths of 20 meters and have teeth designed for tearing prey apart. The microbiological life is equally hostile. Bacteria and viruses that invade host organisms and reproduce by destroying them from within. Parasites that take control of their host's behavior. Fungi that dissolve living tissue. Plants that have developed toxins, thorns, and chemical defenses. This isn't an ecosystem. This is a war zone where every organism is armed. Keeper Zalmer listened to all the reports. Then he watched the visual feeds from the surface. He saw humans, bipedal, tool-using, building cities of metal and glass, operating vehicles, communicating with complex language, wearing clothing to protect themselves from their own planet's attempts to kill them. He saw children playing in areas where his own species would require full environmental suits. He saw humans swimming in oceans that contained creatures that could eat them. He saw them climbing mountains that his people would consider impassable. He saw them living in regions that experienced temperature swings of over 50 degrees. He saw them thriving. After reviewing all the data, Keeper Zalmer made his classification. Category 12, Deathworld, extreme caution advised, do not colonize, do not visit without extensive preparation. Inform all member species that life from this world has evolved under conditions of constant threat. They should be treated as inherently dangerous, even if they appear peaceful. The Council asked him to explain his reasoning. He pulled up a comparison chart. Here is a Category 5 world. High gravity, frequent storms, some dangerous predators. Most species require environmental protection to visit, but it's manageable. Here is Earth. The gravity is similar, but that's where the similarities end. Earth doesn't just have dangerous weather. It has weather that can kill you in minutes. It doesn't just have predators. It has predators that hunt in packs using coordinated strategies. It doesn't just have dangerous microorganisms. It has diseases that can wipe out entire populations. And the humans evolved there. They evolved alongside all of this. They adapted to it, learned to survive it, eventually learned to thrive in it. Do you understand what that means? They spent millions of years in an environment where everything was trying to kill them. Their evolution was shaped by constant, relentless pressure. They had to become tough, resourceful, adaptable, and intelligent just to survive childhood. We think of intelligence as something that develops slowly. Something that emerges when a species has time to think, to reflect, to build. But humans didn't have that luxury. They developed intelligence as a survival tool. They learned to make weapons because they needed to hunt prey and defend against predators. They learned to make fire because their planet had regions where you would freeze to death without it. They learned to build shelters because their weather would kill them otherwise. Every single human alive today is the descendant of survivors. Not survivors of war. Not survivors of some catastrophic event. Survivors of their own planet's normal daily conditions. For millions of years. The council member from the Peaceful Gardens Collective objected. Surely you exaggerate. I've reviewed the data. Yes, Earth is more dangerous than most worlds, but the humans seem pleasant enough. They've responded to our messages with curiosity and openness. They appear eager to join the galactic community. They don't seem dangerous at all. Keeper Zalmer pulled up a video. It showed a human child, approximately 6 of their years old, being taught by an adult. The lesson: what to do if you encounter a large predator. The child was being instructed to make loud noises, appear larger, and back away slowly. If that failed, the child was taught to fight back, aim for the eyes and nose. Use any weapon available. Do not run because the predator is faster. This is basic childhood education on Earth. They teach their children how to fight predators, not with technology, not with weapons, with their bare hands. Because it's necessary knowledge for survival. He pulled up another video. A human teenager was participating in a test of physical endurance. They called it sports. The teenager ran continuously for over 5 kilometers, then immediately engaged in a combat simulation with other humans. This wasn't military training. This was recreation. Humans do this for fun. They deliberately put their bodies through stress and pain to make themselves stronger. Another video. Adult humans climbing a mountain, not with vehicles, on foot. For recreation. The mountain was over 8,000 meters tall. The air at that altitude doesn't contain enough oxygen to breathe comfortably. The temperature is well below freezing. The winds can reach hurricane force, and humans climb it because it's there. Because they want to test themselves against it. Keeper Zalmer looked at the council member. They don't seem dangerous because they don't think of themselves as dangerous. This is normal to them. They live on a planet that kills approximately 1 in 10,000 of them every year through what they call natural disasters. Storms, quakes, volcano eruptions. They've built an entire planetary culture around preparing for and surviving these events. They have specialized response teams, early warning systems, reinforced structures, and when disaster strikes, they help each other. They run toward danger to save others. I'm not saying humans are hostile. I'm saying they're adapted to conditions we can barely imagine. And that makes them fundamentally different from every other species in the galactic community. Every single one of our member species evolved on worlds that were relatively safe, where survival was challenging but achievable, where cooperation was possible because the environment wasn't constantly trying to kill everyone. Humans evolved where cooperation was mandatory because if you didn't work together, the planet would kill you all, where strength and endurance were necessary because you couldn't survive without them, where intelligence was the difference between eating and being eaten. I'm classifying Earth as Category 12 not because humans are dangerous to us. I'm doing it because their normal is our nightmare. And we need to remember that when we interact with them. The classification was approved. First contact was scheduled for 6 months later. The Galactic Council prepared carefully. They assembled a diplomatic team of the most experienced ambassadors from the most advanced species. They prepared gifts. They drafted treaties. They planned a ceremony that would welcome humanity into the galactic community. They didn't prepare for what humans would actually be like. The human delegation arrived at the Galactic Council station exactly on time. They had built their own ship for the journey. The Council engineers had examined it from a distance. The design was strange, inefficient. It used chemical rockets of all things, primitive technology that most species had abandoned thousands of years ago. But it worked. The humans had gotten themselves to the station. When the airlock opened, the Council delegation got their first in-person look at humans. They were smaller than expected. The average height was only about 1.7 meters. They didn't look particularly strong or dangerous. No visible weapons, no armor. They wore simple clothing. They smiled. Ambassador Relvin of the Tarthian hegemony stepped forward to make the welcoming speech. He was an experienced diplomat. He had welcomed 17 species into the galactic community. He knew how to put newcomers at ease. But something about the humans made him nervous. It wasn't anything obvious. They were polite, friendly, curious, but there was something in their eyes, something alert, watchful, like they were constantly assessing everything around them. One of the human delegation members, a female who introduced herself as Dr. Elena Rodriguez, noticed Relvin's discomfort. She smiled again. I know we must seem strange to you. Our world is very different from most, we've learned. We're told you've classified it as a death world. That's probably fair. We've had a chance to review some of your databases. Most habitable planets are much safer than Earth. Relvin tried to be diplomatic. Your world is indeed more challenging than most, but please don't think we judge you for it. You've accomplished remarkable things despite the difficulties. Dr. Rodriguez's smile widened. She seemed amused. Despite the difficulties, Ambassador, with respect, I don't think you understand. We didn't accomplish things despite our world being dangerous. We accomplished things because it was dangerous. Everything that makes humans who we are, everything we're good at, we learned from surviving Earth. She gestured to the station around them. You built this station in stable orbit around a calm planet. It's beautiful, perfectly maintained, safe, but it's also predictable. Nothing unexpected ever happens here, does it? Relvin wasn't sure how to respond. Well, no. We design our habitats to be stable. Exactly. You design for stability. We design for chaos, because we have to. A human child growing up on Earth learns to deal with uncertainty from birth. The weather might change suddenly. A storm might destroy your home. An earthquake might change the landscape. You have to be ready for anything. You have to adapt quickly. You have to solve problems with whatever resources you have available. That's what we're good at. Adapting, problem-solving, surviving unexpected situations. You've had millions of years to perfect your technology because your worlds were stable enough to allow slow, steady progress. We had to learn fast because if we didn't, we died. Another human, a male named Commander James Mitchell, spoke up. He seemed friendly, but there was steel in his voice. We've been reading about galactic history. The conflicts, the wars, they seem to follow predictable patterns, slow escalation, formal declarations. Set piece battles with rules of engagement. Very civilized. Relvin nodded slowly. We have advanced beyond barbaric warfare. We fight only when absolutely necessary, and even then we follow established conventions. Commander Mitchell's expression was hard to read. That's interesting. Humans fought wars for most of our history, thousands of them. And we learned something. Rules only work if both sides follow them. Conventions only matter if everyone agrees. In real survival situations, there are no rules. There's only what works and what gets you killed. He paused. I'm not saying we want war, we don't. But if it comes, we won't fight your wars, we'll fight our wars, and our wars don't have rules. The room went quiet. Dr. Rodriguez stepped in smoothly. What Commander Mitchell means is that we approach problems differently. You've evolved in stable environments with predictable rules. We've evolved in chaos where the only rule is survive. That doesn't make us better or worse, just different. And we're hoping that difference can be an asset to the galactic community, not a problem. Relvin tried to recover his diplomatic composure. Yes, of course, diversity of thought and approach is valuable. That's why we're so pleased to welcome you. But he made a mental note to review the security protocols for the station, and to recommend that the military council pay very close attention to these humans, just in case. The first joint project between humans and the galactic community was supposed to be simple. A scientific research station on a Class 4 world, moderate dangers, some hostile life forms, occasional storms. Nothing humans couldn't handle, especially with galactic technology to help. The project was a disaster, but not for the reasons anyone expected. The galactic team consisted of specialists from 6 different species, all experienced, all well-trained. They set up the base according to established procedures: defensive perimeter, environmental controls, emergency protocols, everything by the book. The human team consisted of 12 scientists and engineers. They showed up with equipment that looked primitive by galactic standards, and they immediately started breaking all the rules. Within the first week, the human team had modified their habitat modules without authorization. They'd installed redundant systems that the galactic engineers considered unnecessary. They'd created manual override controls for everything. They'd stockpiled emergency supplies far beyond what the mission parameters required. The galactic team lead, an engineer named Prilmit, confronted the human team lead. Dr. Sarah Kim, you can't just modify the habitat without approval. There are safety protocols, inspection requirements. You're compromising the structural integrity. Dr. Kim looked confused. I'm improving the structural integrity. Look, you've got everything running through centralized computer control. That's efficient, but what happens if the computer fails? It won't fail. The systems are triple redundant. Yeah, but what if they do? We added manual controls, so if something goes wrong with the automated systems, we can still operate essential functions. Nothing will go wrong, you don't know that. No offense, but you can't predict everything. We prepare for what we can't predict. Prilmit tried to explain. We have thousands of years of experience with these systems. We know exactly what can go wrong and how to prevent it. But the humans wouldn't listen. They kept modifying things, adding redundancies, creating backups for their backups, running disaster drills that the galactic team thought were excessive. Prilmit reported the issues to the Project Oversight Committee. The humans are being paranoid and disruptive. They refuse to follow established procedures. They're creating problems where none exist. The committee decided to let it slide. Cultural differences. Give them time to adjust. 3 months into the mission, a storm hit. Not a predicted storm, not on any of the weather models. A statistical anomaly. The kind of thing that happens once every 50 years. The storm was violent. Winds that damaged the solar collectors. Lightning that interfered with communications. Flooding that threatened the lower levels of the habitat. The galactic team followed procedure. They activated emergency protocols, sealed the habitat, waited for the storm to pass. But the solar collectors were damaged, power was dropping, and the environmental controls were starting to fail. Prilmit tried to fix it, but everything was controlled by the central computer, and the computer was glitching. Something about the lightning strikes had caused cascading errors. The habitat was losing power, losing heat. They had maybe 6 hours before it became uninhabitable. Then Dr. Kim showed up with her team. We've got this. They started activating the manual overrides the galactic team hadn't understood. They rerouted power using the redundant systems. They brought out the emergency supplies they'd stockpiled. Within 2 hours, the habitat was stable, not comfortable but survivable. After the storm passed and power was restored, Prilmit asked Dr. Kim, "How did you know? How did you prepare for something that wasn't supposed to happen?" Dr. Kim shrugged. We didn't know specifically what would go wrong. But on Earth, something always goes wrong. Whether predictions fail, Equipment breaks, disasters happen, so we prepare for everything. We assume things will break and we make sure we can survive anyway. You build your systems to not fail. That's smart. But we build our systems assuming they will fail. And we make sure we can keep going even when they do. That's the difference between evolving on a safe world and evolving on Earth. You plan for success. We plan for failure. And when things go wrong, as they always eventually do, we're ready. The incident made the galactic news. Human engineers save research station when sophisticated technology fails. Primitive backup systems prove more reliable than advanced computers. It wasn't long before other projects wanted human consultants, not because humans had better technology. They didn't, but because they thought about problems differently. They anticipated failure in ways that species from safe worlds never did. A mining operation in an asteroid field hired a human safety officer. The galactic team thought it was unnecessary. What could go wrong in space mining? They'd been doing it for thousands of years. The human, a former emergency response coordinator named Chen Wei, watched the operation for a week. Then he made a list of 73 potential failure points that could kill the entire crew. The galactic engineers laughed. These scenarios are absurdly unlikely. Some are literally impossible given our safety systems. Chen Wei's response: on Earth we have a saying, famous last words. Those are words people say right before something impossible kills them. I've seen buildings that were rated to withstand earthquakes collapse. I've seen ships that were unsinkable sink. I've seen disasters that couldn't happen. So when you tell me something is impossible, I hear that we haven't prepared for it yet. The engineers ignored him until a micrometeorite swarm came through the area, an event that was supposed to be impossible to predict. The swarm damaged multiple ships, breached 3 different facility modules, cut power to the main refinery. Chen Wei had drilled the crew for exactly this scenario. Even though everyone said it couldn't happen, the crew knew what to do. They sealed breaches, evacuated damaged areas, rerouted power. Everyone survived. After that, every major space project wanted a human safety consultant, just in case. 3 years after first contact, the Galactic Council was starting to understand what it meant to have humans in the community. They weren't warriors exactly, they weren't conquerors, but they changed things everywhere they went. Human doctors were revolutionizing medicine, not because they had better technology, but because they approached disease differently. Galactic medicine was about precision, targeted treatments, elegant solutions. Human medicine was about redundancy, multiple treatment approaches, aggressive intervention. They treated disease the way they approached their own planet, as an enemy that needed to be defeated by any means necessary. Human engineers were being hired everywhere. Their designs were often less elegant than traditional galactic engineering, more robust, overbuilt, but they didn't fail, even when they should have. Human teachers were introducing new educational methods. On safe worlds, education was about memorization and procedure. Human education included something called critical thinking, teaching students to solve problems they'd never seen before, to adapt to unexpected situations, to question established methods. It was unsettling for many species. Humans seemed to assume that everything would eventually go wrong, that every system would eventually fail, that every plan needed a backup and every backup needed a backup. But they were also proving that this mindset worked. Human-designed systems had lower failure rates. Human-trained personnel handled emergencies better. Human approaches to problems often found solutions that traditional methods missed. Keeper Zalmer was proven right. Humans were products of their Deathworld, and that made them fundamentally different from everyone else. The real test came during the Corvan crisis. The Corvan system was home to 3 billion Corvan citizens. They were an old species, peaceful. They'd been part of the galactic community for over 2,000 years. Then their star started behaving unexpectedly. Solar flares. Radiation spikes. The astrophysicists couldn't figure out what was wrong, but they predicted the star would go through a phase of instability, maybe for decades. The radiation would make the surface of the Corvan homeworld uninhabitable. 3 billion people needed to evacuate, to move to new worlds, to rebuild their entire civilization elsewhere. The Galactic Council convened emergency sessions. Resources were pledged, ships were diverted, plans were made. But the logistics were overwhelming. 3 billion people, multiple worlds needed for relocation, infrastructure to build, resources to transport. It would take years to complete the evacuation, maybe decades, and the Corvans were starting to panic. The human delegation asked to address the council. Dr. Rodriguez, now the senior human ambassador, spoke. "We've been reviewing the plans. They're comprehensive, well thought out, but they're going to take too long. The Corvans will lose people, possibly millions. The radiation levels are increasing faster than predicted." The council knew, but what could they do? They were already moving as fast as possible. Dr. Rodriguez continued, "We have a different approach to suggest. It's not elegant. It's not neat. It's going to look chaotic. But on Earth, we've dealt with disasters that required moving millions of people on short notice. We've learned some things about crisis management." She pulled up a human plan. Instead of carefully organized relocation to permanent new homes, the humans proposed something different. Rapid evacuation to any available habitable space. Multiple temporary settlements. Quick deployments of basic infrastructure. Get the population safe first. Worry about permanent solutions later. The council members were skeptical. This is essentially creating refugee camps across dozens of worlds. It's inefficient. It's disorganized. It will create enormous administrative challenges. Commander Mitchell, now a senior military liaison, spoke up. "Yes, it's messy, but it's fast. And in a crisis, fast matters more than neat. You're trying to evacuate 3 billion people in an organized fashion while maintaining their quality of life. That's admirable, but it's going to get people killed. We're saying get them out alive first. Worry about quality of life once they're not dying from radiation." The council debated. This went against everything they'd built their civilization on. Order, planning, proper procedures, but the radiation levels kept rising, and the careful evacuation was falling behind schedule. Finally, they agreed to try the human approach, for one world, as a test. The humans deployed. And it was chaos. Ships landed everywhere. Temporary shelters went up in days instead of months. Food and water supplies were rushed in. No careful planning, no perfect organization, just rapid response to get people to safety. It wasn't pretty. The camps were crowded. Resources were stretched. It was nothing like the comfortable, organized settlements the galactic approach would have created. But it was fast. 150 million Corvans evacuated in 3 months. Compare that to the 50 million evacuated through traditional methods in the same time period. The Council authorized human crisis management teams for the remaining evacuations. Over the next 2 years, the entire Corvan population was moved to safety. It was messy. It was chaotic. There were problems, lots of problems, but everyone survived. All 3 billion. After the crisis, a Corvan survivor met with Dr. Rodriguez. "Our people are grateful. But I must ask, how did your species learn to manage disasters on this scale?" Dr. Rodriguez smiled sadly. "Practice. We've had to evacuate cities due to storms, earthquakes, floods, and volcanic eruptions. We've had to feed populations when crops fail. We've had to treat disease outbreaks. We've had to rebuild after disasters destroyed everything. Not because we wanted to, because our planet kept trying to kill us and we had to learn to survive anyway. Every human culture has stories about disasters, about survival, about rebuilding. It's part of who we are. When you grow up on a Deathworld, you learn that sometimes survival is messy. Sometimes you can't save everything. Sometimes you just have to grab what you can and run and hope it's enough. We didn't do anything special for your people. We just did what we've always done, survive, and help others survive, because that's what you do when disaster strikes. You don't worry about doing it perfectly. You worry about doing it fast enough. The Corvan survivor thought about that. Then he said something that would become famous across the galactic community. "I'm glad humans survived their Deathworld, because now they can help the rest of us survive ours." 10 years after first contact, the Galactic Council held a ceremony. They were awarding humanity full membership status, all rights and privileges, equal voice in all decisions. Keeper Zalmer, now very old, gave a speech. He had been the one to classify Earth as Category 12. He had warned that humans were different, dangerous maybe. He admitted he'd been wrong, not about the classification. Earth was still a Deathworld, the most dangerous inhabited planet ever discovered. But he'd been wrong about what that meant. "I thought being from a Deathworld would make humans aggressive, violent, unstable. I thought they would bring danger with them wherever they went. I recommended extreme caution. I suggested they might be a threat, but I failed to understand something fundamental. Yes, humans evolved in an environment of constant danger. Yes, their planet tried to kill them every day. But they didn't respond to that with violence and aggression. They responded with cooperation, with resilience, with an absolute refusal to give up. Humans don't see the galaxy the way we do. We see a peaceful, ordered community that occasionally faces challenges. Humans see a dangerous place where bad things can happen at any moment, where you need to be ready for anything, where you need to help each other or everyone dies. And you know what? They're right. The galaxy is dangerous. We've just been lucky enough to evolve on worlds where we didn't have to think about it every day. But danger exists. Disasters happen. And when they do, we need people who know how to handle them. Humans spent millions of years learning to survive the unsurvivable, learning to prepare for the unpredictable, learning to keep going when everything went wrong. And now they're using those skills to help everyone else. Earth is still Category 12. Still a death world. Still a planet I would never visit without extensive environmental protection. But I'm grateful it exists, because it created a species that the galaxy desperately needed, even if we didn't know it. Welcome, humanity. Welcome to the galactic community, and thank you. Thank you for being the survivors we all needed you to be. The ceremony ended. Humans were officially part of the galactic community, equal partners, equal voices. But everyone knew the truth. Humans weren't equal. They were different, special, not because they were superior, not because they were more advanced, but because they came from hell and learned to smile while they lived there. Every species had strengths. The Tarthians were brilliant engineers. The Kixians were master diplomats. The Corvans were incredible artists. Every species contributed something unique. Humans contributed something the galaxy had never had before. The ability to thrive in the worst possible circumstances, to turn disasters into opportunities, to look at impossible situations and find a way forward anyway. They were the children of a death world, and that made them the most valuable species in the galaxy. Because sooner or later, everyone faces a disaster. Everyone encounters a situation where everything goes wrong. Everyone needs people who know how to survive when survival seems impossible. And humans had been training for that their entire evolutionary history. The galaxy was safer with them in it, not because they were warriors, not because they had powerful weapons, but because they knew how to survive, and they were willing to teach everyone else. Earth remained Category 12, Deathworld. Extreme caution advised. But now, when species looked at that classification, they didn't see it as a warning anymore. They saw it as a badge of honor, because if you could survive Earth, you could survive anything. And if you were allied with people who survived Earth, you knew that no matter what happened, no matter how bad things got, they would know what to do. They would keep going, keep adapting, keep surviving, because that's what humans did. That's what their death world had taught them, and the galaxy was better for it. Years later, a young student from the Peaceful Gardens Collective asked her teacher a question. "Teacher, why do we have humans on every crisis response team? Why do we insist on human safety consultants for every major project? Why do we learn human disaster preparedness protocols?" The teacher, who had lived through the Corvan crisis, smiled. "Because, young one, we have been lucky. For thousands of years, we have lived on safe worlds with stable conditions. We have built our civilization during a time of relative peace and prosperity. But that luck cannot last forever. Eventually, every civilization faces crisis, disaster, moments when everything goes wrong. And when that happens, you want humans there, because they've already survived their disaster. They've already lived through their worst nightmare. They spent millions of years on a planet that was constantly trying to kill them, and they didn't just survive. They thrived, they built cities, created art, explored space, all while their own planet was actively hostile to their existence. If they can do that, they can help us do anything." The student thought about that. So we don't need humans because they're stronger or smarter than us. No, we need them because they refuse to give up. Because they look at impossible situations and see challenges to overcome. Because they've been dealing with chaos and uncertainty their entire evolutionary history, and they've gotten very good at it. The teacher pulled up an image of Earth. "See that blue and green planet? It's beautiful, isn't it? But it's also trying to kill everyone on it. Right now, as we speak, there are storms raging that could destroy cities. Earthquakes that could swallow towns. Predators that could kill you in seconds. Diseases that could spread across populations. And humans live there, billions of them. Living their lives, raising their children, building their future, on a planet that wants them dead. That's why we need them, because if they can do that, they can handle anything the universe throws at us." The student looked at Earth with new understanding. So Category 12 doesn't mean dangerous to us. It means they survived the dangerous. The teacher nodded. Exactly, Earth is a death world, and humans are its children. And we are very, very lucky that they decided to share what they learned with the rest of us. Because someday, we might need it. And when that day comes, we'll be glad we have humans on our side. The student looked at the image of Earth one more time. The beautiful, deadly, impossible planet where humans called home. And she understood. The galaxy had found something more valuable than any technology, more important than any weapon, more precious than any resource. They had found a species that knew how to survive, and that made all the difference. This is the story of the Death World, the story of Earth, the story of how the galaxy learned that sometimes the most dangerous places create the most valuable allies. That sometimes surviving hell makes you exactly what heaven needs. Humans didn't conquer the galaxy. They didn't need to. They just survived their own planet, and then taught everyone else how to survive theirs. And the galaxy would never be the same.